There is a certain kind of person who smiles at you warmly, laughs at your jokes, and sits beside you at dinner, and yet, somewhere deep inside their chest, a quiet alarm is always running. They are watching, measuring, waiting for the moment things shift. They want to believe in people. They genuinely do. But belief feels like standing on ice, beautiful from a distance, terrifying beneath their feet. Every act of kindness they receive gets quietly examined. Every promise gets filed with a silent asterisk. But if you know someone like this, or if you are someone like this, please understand that this is not coldness. This is not arrogance. This is a wound that learned to wear armor. And armor, over time, begins to feel like skin. Today we are going to decode the psychology of people who cannot trust anyone around them. Why the brain builds these walls. What signs reveal this pattern in daily life? And most importantly, what a person can actually do to begin healing without betraying themselves. So why does this happen? Why do some people move through the world with open hands while others, just as intelligent, just as caring, move through it braced for impact? The answer lives in two completely different origins. Two different roads that lead to the same locked door. The first group is born wired differently. Scientists call this sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. These individuals, known as highly sensitive persons, have nervous systems that process stimuli, including social and emotional cues, at a significantly deeper neurological level than most people around them. The second group was not born this way. They were shaped. Picture a child who grows up in a home where one parent says, "I love you" on Monday and disappears emotionally by Wednesday. That child learns very early, love is not stable. Safety is not guaranteed. Trust is a gamble with terrible odds. In both cases, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, becomes hypersensitive. It begins treating human connection the same way it treats a dark alley at midnight. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational trust building, gets overridden again and again by fear-based processing. Survival becomes identity. The child who once scanned their parents' face for signs of mood has grown into an adult who scans every room, every face, every silence. What began as a coping strategy has become the only language their nervous system knows how to speak. So when this enters adult life, it does not announce itself loudly. It does not look like obvious paranoia. It looks like a person who is thoughtful, careful, and deeply self-reliant, until you look closely and realize they have never once let anyone fully in. The first sign is that they test people without ever admitting it, even to themselves. They will tell a small, harmless half-truth and watch what happens. They will cancel plans last minute and quietly observe how someone responds. They are running experiments they never consciously designed. Imagine a woman named Layla. She tells her new colleague that she has a meeting on Friday when she does not. She watches to see if the colleague respects the boundary or pushes anyway. She is not being manipulative. She is being an archaeologist, digging carefully before she builds anything on the ground. Psychologically, this behavior is driven by the brain's threat prediction system. The hippocampus stores emotional memories, and when early experience is taught that people are inconsistent, the brain creates what researchers call social threat schemas, automatic mental frameworks that treat every new person as a potential repeat of past pain. The emotional consequence is exhausting. Maintaining these invisible tests requires enormous mental energy. They cannot simply enjoy a new relationship. They are simultaneously experiencing it and auditing it, like someone who is dancing and writing a report about the dance at the same time. And the tragedy is that sometimes people fail the tests not because they are untrustworthy, but because they are simply unaware a test is happening. Trust gets withheld from people who genuinely deserved it. And the person never knows why their connections always feel incomplete. The second sign is that they find it nearly impossible to ask for help. Not because they are proud, exactly, but because asking for help means revealing need, and revealed need has historically been used against them. Vulnerability, for them, is a vector of attack. Think of Marcus, a 38-year-old project manager who has led his team through 3 major crises this year. His co-workers admire his competence. What they do not know is that Marcus spent 3 nights last month unable to sleep, overwhelmed, and not once did it occur to him to call a friend. The idea felt genuinely dangerous. This connects directly to the default mode network, or DMN, the brain system active during self-referential thinking and social simulation. In people with deep trust wounds, the DMN becomes hyperactive around vulnerability, constantly simulating worst-case social outcomes before any real conversation has even begun. The emotional consequence here is a life of invisible labor. They carry everything alone, not because no one offers, but because accepting the offer requires a degree of exposure that their nervous system interprets as threat. They are lonely not from a lack of people, but from an inability to use the people who are there. Over time, this creates a painful irony. They are often the first person others turn to in a crisis, yet they themselves never turn to anyone. They become a lighthouse, steady, bright, guiding others safely home, while standing alone in the dark water. The third sign is that they remember betrayals with photographic precision. A broken promise from 7 years ago can feel as raw today as it did the morning it happened. The brain has flagged it not as a memory but as a permanent warning signal. There is a woman named Priya whose closest friend from college cancelled her wedding attendance at the last minute. The friend had a real emergency. She apologized genuinely. She has proven her care 100 times since. But Priya, even now, keeps a small, quiet part of herself just slightly out of reach of that friendship. This is the work of the insular cortex, the brain region responsible for processing emotional pain. Studies show that social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical injury. For people with unresolved trust trauma, this activation becomes chronic. The wound never fully closes because the brain never stops scanning for it to reopen. The emotional consequence is that forgiveness feels like danger. Not because they are unforgiving by nature, but because their brain has wired forgiveness and vulnerability together. To forgive someone is to open a door. And open doors, in their history, have not always led to safe places. The result is a strange kind of loneliness, surrounded by people they have known for years but never fully released their guard around. They love people from behind glass. Warm and present on the surface, but always with one hand near the exit. The fourth sign is that they are extraordinarily skilled at reading people, perhaps even uncomfortably so. They can sense when someone is performing, when a smile does not reach the eyes, when a yes is actually a carefully polished no. Their radar is almost never wrong. Picture Ethan sitting across from a new business partner at lunch. The partner is charming, prepared, enthusiastic. Everyone else at the table is sold. But Ethan is watching the way the man straightens his silverware every time he mentions money. Something is not aligned. Ethan does not say it aloud. He just makes a mental note. This perceptiveness is rooted in hypervigilance, a state in which the amygdala remains on elevated alert, heightening sensitivity to micro-expressions, tonal shifts, and behavioral inconsistencies. It is also linked to theory of mind, the ability to model other people's internal states with unusual depth and accuracy. The emotional consequence, however, is that they trust their perception over their heart. Even when someone is genuinely safe, their pattern recognition system may surface a false alarm, a fleeting expression that looked like concealment, a pause that felt like calculation. They cannot always distinguish a real signal from an echo of old pain. Their gift becomes their prison. They see too much. And because they see too much, they cannot unsee. The variability that protects them from genuine harm also prevents them from receiving genuine love, because love, by its nature, requires some degree of chosen blindness. The fifth sign is that they struggle deeply with depending on anyone emotionally, even when they consciously want to. They may fall in love fully and completely, and still, in the quiet moments, begin to quietly prepare for the ending that has not arrived yet. There is a man named Jonas who has been in a loving, stable relationship for 4 years. His partner has never betrayed him, never lied, never broken a real promise. And yet Jonas keeps a small emotional reserve, a part of himself he simply will not hand over. He is not cold. He is pre-grieving a loss that may never come. Psychologically, this is rooted in what attachment researchers call insecure attachment patterns, particularly the fearful avoidance style. The brain's cortisol system, responsible for stress response, becomes activated specifically in moments of emotional intimacy, as if closeness itself were a source of physiological danger. The emotional consequence is relationships that are deeply loving but subtly limited. Their partners often describe feeling like they are 90% in, cherished, consistent, real, but that the last 10% is behind a wall made of something they cannot name or reach. Neither person quite understands why. And so they walk through their lives carrying this quiet weight, loving people they do not fully trust, trusting people they do not fully love, always slightly displaced from the intimacy they most deeply want. Here is what most people never stop to realize. These individuals are not broken. They are not cold. They are not incapable of love. They simply learned to love in a world that did not always make love safe. And the brain, brilliant and loyal, did exactly what it was designed to do. It kept them alive. What they are carrying is not a flaw. It is the fossil record of a survival story. So what can they do? They cannot simply turn this off. You cannot argue a nervous system out of its learned responses. You cannot logic your way out of a wound that was never verbal to begin with. But there are 3 principles, not quick fixes, but genuine shifts, that can begin to create space where walls once stood. The first principle is learning to name the pattern in real time. The second is choosing micro-vulnerabilities before macro-trust. The third is allowing evidence to update the file, not just open it. Each of these principles works by engaging the prefrontal cortex, the rational, updating brain, rather than surrendering entirely to the amygdala's ancient threat scripts. The first principle, naming. When they catch themselves testing a person, overanalyzing a silence, or preemptively withdrawing, they say, out loud or in writing, "My nervous system is treating this moment as a threat because it has seen this pattern before." Research on metacognition shows that naming emotional processes reduces amygdala activation, creating even a few seconds of space between impulse and action. The second principle, micro-vulnerability. Instead of waiting until someone has passed every invisible test before offering trust, they choose one small, low-stakes disclosure. Not the deepest wound, just a slight opening. I found that difficult. I was nervous about this. Each small, honest moment is a data point that teaches the nervous system that openness does not always end in pain. The third principle, actively updating the evidence file. Their brain collects examples of betrayal with extraordinary efficiency, but it undercollects examples of reliability. So they keep a deliberate record, not a journal of affirmations, but a factual log. She showed up when she said she would. He kept that confidence for 3 years. The prefrontal cortex needs real data to override learned fear. When they practice this letting go, slowly, intentionally, not all at once, something remarkable begins. The amygdala does not disappear. The memory does not erase. But the nervous system begins to learn that safety is not only a memory from the past. It can also be a pattern being built, carefully and courageously, in the present. They do not need to become naive. They do not need to throw the door open and trust everyone equally. They need only to become like water finding a new channel, still clear, still deep, still moving on their own terms, but no longer pouring only into stone. These are people who think deeply, feel fully, and carry within them an extraordinary capacity for loyalty, because they know, better than most, what it costs when loyalty is broken. When they do finally trust, they trust with their whole architecture. And the people who receive that trust are holding something rare. If any part of this felt familiar, leave a comment about which sign resonates with you most. Is it the invisible testing? The inability to ask for help? The photographic memory of betrayal? Whatever it is, naming it is already the beginning of something different. If this video helped you feel a little lighter, a little more understood, please press like and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, because we have much more to explore together.